We are here today to talk about conversation agility. To create behavior change, we have to be very strategic in the way we spend our time or the way we look at behavior change and learning. And so to create a true learning environment and to really create behavior change, we have to develop competencies, we have to learn hard skills. And remember, the difference is competencies are skills that you use across many, or they're competencies you use across many skills, and skills are maybe something you use once in a while or every once in a while. It's kind of more that check the box. This is how you do it. But you'll see today how the competencies you've been building through all of Leading Edge start to play into today's session. And today's session is where we start talking a lot about fear and innovation. And I know that's why you signed up, because you wanted to learn more about fear and innovation. So what we talked a lot about in session 2 is that successful leadership is about strategic conversations. It's about influence, and it is not about directive conversations. And we're going to actually bring a little bit more of that in today. But it's important that we remember that, because as we have conversations, the more that we direct, the more fear we build, which means we reduce innovation. And so when you think about these strategic influencing conversations, we looked at a model that you guys can use as you're building these conversations, and until it gets a little bit more of a habit. And so that model is set a clear and measurable goal. Do never go into a conversation and not know the outcome. Assess the situation, choose the right appeal. And we talked a lot about all the different types of appeals there are when it comes to conversations, and really being strategic about how you approach someone. We talked about structuring the conversation, plan for that unforeseen, rehearse, and in that rehearsal, we've got to get our opening line right. Always tell someone why they're there and what the outcome's going to be. Start with the end and create that full loop in that conversation. And then always debrief. Debriefing, that time you spend with yourself, is helping you create a new neural pathway. If you're constantly going into a directive conversation, and that's your brain's fastest way from point A to B, but you have to develop yourself and you have to find some new pathways. One of the ways to do that is to reflect, practice and reflect, because what it does is it starts to dig that little pathway. It gets deeper and deeper and deeper every time. So you have to spend that time debriefing in your brain. What went well? What could go better? What did I like? Looking back on it, this is what I learned. That creates a new neural pathway. So in the chat box, if any of you had a conversation and used these techniques, even a piece of these techniques, since we spoke last Friday, I'd love to hear in the chat box, yes, I use them, or here's what I did. Share your learning, because as you share your learning, we're all learning together. And so as you guys are typing some ideas into the chat box, feedback, comments, anything that you can share that creates learning, let's talk a little bit about the self-coaching worksheets. And remember, you guys start typing in comments from session 2. And so remember to always do your self-coaching worksheets. I always say try to do them within 24 hours of completing the training and the education, because that helps you, again, create those new neural pathways. It helps you do the mental work to really change and to think about things. All right, Susan, yes, I use them to negotiate a dog boarding training situation. Fantastic. And we all love Susan's dog. Funny quick story. Susan, who lives up in Connecticut, before we met her, we didn't even know her. She adopted a dog from someone that my friend rescued. No lie, true story. We all started talking to Susan. We met her through another organization and we realized that we knew her dog. So small world in the dog rescue. Yes, Angelica is her dog. All right, so bring in some more ideas. Share how you're using this. And then think about the homework that we assigned. And here's the question I want to ask you guys. When you thought about your conversations, what percentage were directive and what percentage were influencing? Drop that number. Drop the number that was directive. So were you directive 50% of the time, 80% of the time? Did you find yourself being more directive when you were stressed or overwhelmed, or it was a kind of a tight situation? So Diana, yes, we'll be using it to get the budget. Great, it's right. We talked about that last time. Information sharing and collaboration, you used it for. I love that. Fantastic. Worked on the opening line to reduce fear. AJ, great job. And we're going to talk even more about that reduction of fear today. So I'm so glad that you're starting to recognize that opening line in a conversation starts to reduce fear so that you can open up the part of our brain that learns and is collaborative and the part of the brain you actually want people using. So also make sure you're using these worksheets to create that conversation while you're building the new neural pathways. Always debrief after the conversation. And then as always, in all three of these, we have the same homework. Share what you've learned with someone else, because it will stick in your brain as you share it. And so your brain likes this push-pull, right? I'm pushing information into your brain today. When you share it, you're pulling it back out and it starts to become yours and it starts to become more natural. So always reteach anything you learn to someone else. Find a stranger on the street if you have to and say, do you have 2 minutes? I need to teach you something because it's going to help me. And find a stranger if you can't find someone you know.